4 lines. That was all it took to collapse a $90 million empire and send the architect of California's largest fraud scheme to federal prison. And those lines were written by the one person David Chen thought he had completely under his thumb: his 7-month pregnant wife. The nursery in their Palo Alto mansion was silent. Soft gray walls, a mobile of tiny silver stars catching the afternoon light. It looked like the perfect nest for a growing family. But Natalie Chen was gone. She hadn't left for a hospital. She hadn't been kidnapped. She had gone to war. David wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a financial predator who convinced the world his wife was unstable. But Natalie wasn't just a wife. She was a world-class forensic accountant. And while David was building an empire of lies, Natalie was building a case. And by the time David found that note at 6:15 p.m., the trap was already closed. He thought he was playing chess. He didn't realize Natalie had already won. While David was busy deleting texts from his mistress, he forgot one thing. His wife didn't need his phone to destroy him. She just needed his tax returns. Please comment and tell us where you are watching from, and subscribe to our channel. Sit back and relax. This story is really going to take you on a roller coaster journey. To the outside world, Natalie was the quiet wife of a Silicon Valley titan. But inside that quiet nursery, she wasn't just folding baby clothes. She was cross-referencing Ledger 402 against shell companies in the Caymans. And she knew that every time David kissed her forehead and complained about a late meeting, he was actually signing away another $1 million of investor funds. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon in March. Natalie was folding baby clothes in the living room of their Palo Alto home, one hand on her belly, the other holding her phone. "Nat, you're not going to believe this." Her college roommate, Maya Patel, sounded breathless. "I just saw David's car at that wine bar on University Avenue, the one with the private booths in the back. Wasn't he supposed to be in Seattle closing that merger?" Natalie's entire body went cold. The wine bar wasn't near his office. It was tucked away in a quiet corner of downtown, known for discretion and expensive bottles that didn't appear on credit card statements. He rescheduled," Natalie managed, and her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Local investor. Last-minute thing." "Oh, okay. Well, do you want me to swing by with Thai food later?" "Not tonight, Maya. I'll call you." She ended the call and sat perfectly still. For 6 months, she'd been tracking the patterns. The late-night calls David took in his car. The unexplained charges to hotels in San Francisco when he claimed to be working from home. The faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. Something floral and expensive. David had an explanation for everything. He always did. The hotel charges were client dinners that ran late. The perfume was from sitting next to investors at crowded restaurants. Her suspicions were pregnancy hormones making her paranoid. "Sweetheart, you're stressed," he'd say, rubbing her shoulders while she sat at the kitchen table reviewing baby registry items. "This merger is consuming me, but it's all for our future. For her." He'd place his hand on her stomach. Just a few more months, and everything calms down. But Natalie Chen had spent 12 years as a forensic accountant at PricewaterhouseCoopers before David convinced her to take a break when they started trying for a baby. She knew how liars operated. She knew what patterns meant. And now he was getting sloppy. Or he simply didn't care anymore. She grabbed her keys and walked to the garage, ignoring the voice telling her a 7 months pregnant woman shouldn't be driving while her heart was racing like this. But her heart wasn't racing from panic. It was racing from clarity. This was data collection. This was evidence. She parked across the street from the wine bar, engine off, windows cracked. She didn't wait long. He emerged at 4:37 p.m. and he wasn't alone. The woman was striking. Late 20s, athletic build, dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She wore a charcoal suit that looked custom-tailored and carried a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Natalie's first car. She was laughing at something David said, her hand resting on his forearm in a gesture that suggested familiarity. David looked happier than Natalie had seen him in months. Not the tired, stressed venture capitalist who came home complaining about difficult board meetings. This was the charismatic, confident man she'd fallen for at a tech conference 8 years ago. He handed her a manila envelope. Thick. The woman slid it into her portfolio without looking inside. Then she did something that made Natalie's breath catch. She kissed him. Not a quick peck. A real kiss. The kind that said this wasn't their first time. The woman walked to a black Range Rover parked 2 spaces down. David got into his Tesla. They drove off in opposite directions. Natalie sat in her car, staring at the empty parking spaces. Her vision was sharp, crystal clear. No tears, no hysteria. Just cold, analytical processing. Affair confirmed. But that envelope, that wasn't romance. That was a transaction. What Natalie didn't know yet was that the woman wasn't David's mistress. She was a specialist, the kind of person you hire when you need problems to disappear. And Natalie Chen had just stumbled onto something much bigger than infidelity. She drove home slowly, and her mind already categorizing what she'd seen into evidence folders. When she walked into the house, the silence felt different. Not peaceful. Hollow. She climbed the stairs to the nursery, the gray walls she'd carefully chosen, the crib they'd assembled together 3 months ago, the bookshelf already filled with children's books about brave girls and kind dragons. She'd been building a nest while David built an empire of lies. But Natalie Chen wasn't a victim. She was a forensic accountant, and she'd just been handed the first piece of a puzzle. She didn't cry. She opened her laptop. What Natalie discovered over the next 72 hours would turn a suspected affair into a federal wire fraud investigation. But David Chen was too busy maintaining his cover story to notice his wife had stopped asking questions, and that should have terrified him. David Chen checked his reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls as he rode up to the 42nd floor of his office building. He straightened his Tom Ford tie and ran a hand through his hair, recently cut at a place in San Francisco that charged $300. The meeting with Rebecca had gone perfectly. The Cayman accounts were being restructured. The shell companies had been moved through 3 more layers. Another 2 weeks, and the capital would be completely untraceable. His phone vibrated. A text from LC. Package secured. Timeline confirmed. Your move. David smiled and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He'd deal with LC later. First, he had to play the devoted husband. He'd already sent Natalie the apologetic text about the delayed flight from Seattle. It was complete with a screenshot of a fake airline notification he'd created using a template he found online. He'd stop at the florist near the house, buy her those white peonies she liked, and spend the evening talking about nursery furniture while she showed him paint swatches. The thought made him tired. Natalie had become so consumed with the pregnancy. Every conversation was about strollers, pediatricians, and sleep schedules. She'd lost the edge she had when they met. The sharp, quick woman who could read a balance sheet faster than anyone he knew. Now she was just soft, predictable, safe. He pulled into the driveway at 6:12 p.m., flowers in hand, rehearsed smile ready. Natalie, I'm home. Nothing. The house was completely silent. No music, no television. No sound of her moving around upstairs in the nursery, like she usually was at this hour. Nat? He set the flowers on the kitchen counter. A single coffee mug sat in the sink. Cold. He walked through the first floor. Empty. He climbed the stairs, his expensive Italian loafers silent on the runner. This isn't funny. The flight was a nightmare, and I'm exhausted. He checked their bedroom. Untouched. The master bathroom. Empty. His pulse started to quicken, not with concern, but with irritation. He walked down the hall to the nursery. The door was open. Everything was exactly as they'd left it that morning, except for the piece of paper on the changing table. It was folded once, his name written on the outside in her handwriting. David. He unfolded it. 4 lines. Printed, not handwritten. Like she was filing a report. You thought I didn't see. You were wrong. I'm not coming back. Our daughter deserves the truth. David read it 3 times. His mouth went dry. His carefully constructed world began to crack. You thought I didn't see. She saw him. Where? At the wine bar? Impossible. He'd checked. The parking lot had been empty. You were wrong. Wrong about what? The affair? Or something else? I'm not coming back. Not a request. A declaration. This wasn't a woman asking for space. This was a woman who'd made a decision. Our daughter deserves the truth. Truth about what? About Rebecca? Or about the $90 million currently sitting in accounts registered to corporations that didn't exist? His first instinct was to call his sister, Lauren, his CFO and partner in everything. But he stopped. If Natalie saw him with Rebecca, and did she see him with Lauren? No. Impossible. He only met Lauren at the office or at their mother's house in Atherton, the wine bar. That was Rebecca. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Yes? The voice was crisp, professional, female. LC, it's David. We have a situation. She's gone. Gone? Left. Vanished. She left a note. She said she saw something. Did anyone see you yesterday at the wine bar? A pause. Impossible. I swept the area before arrival. The booth was positioned for maximum privacy. Someone saw my car, David hissed. She knows something. The timeline needs to move up immediately. Did you receive the package? Confirmed. But if she's contacted authorities, the package becomes irrelevant. She hasn't, LC said with certainty that David wished he felt. Women like your wife don't run to police. They run to lawyers or to family. You have 72 hours. Manufacture the narrative. Play the concerned husband. Call your attorney now. The line went dead. David sat down in the rocking chair they'd bought for late-night feedings. He smoothed the note out on his knee, reading it again. He had to control this. He had to be the victim. But what David didn't know was that LC wasn't his ally. LC had been working for Natalie for 3 months, and the game was already over. David spent the next 3 hours building his alibi with the precision of an architect, designing a skyscraper. He called Natalie's phone 17 times, each voicemail more frantic than the last. Sweetheart, where are you? I'm worried sick. Please call me. Natalie, this isn't like you. If you're upset about something, we can talk. I'd just come home. I'm calling Maya. I'm calling your sister. Please just let me know you're safe. He texted Maya Patel. Have you heard from Nat? She's not home, and she's not answering. I'm starting to panic. She's 7 months pregnant. Then he called his attorney, Preston Hall, a man who specialized in crisis management for Silicon Valley executives. Preston, I need you. It's Natalie. She's disappeared. The next morning, exactly 24 hours after Natalie officially went missing, David Chen called the police to report his 7 months pregnant wife had vanished without a trace. Detective Sarah Reeves had been with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office for 18 years. She'd worked missing persons cases that ended in bodies found in the bay, and cases that ended with wives turning up at their mothers' houses after a fight. She'd learned to read husbands. David Chen was performing, and he was very good at it. Reeves stood in the Chen's living room, a space that looked like it belonged in Architectural Digest. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, everything white or gray or glass, cold despite the money. David sat on the sofa, head in his hands, wearing a wrinkled button-down that probably cost $500. His eyes were red, but Reeves had seen enough crocodile tears to know the difference. "Mr. Chen," Reeves said, her voice low and even. "Walk me through it one more time. You arrived home at 6:15 p.m. You found this note." She held up the evidence bag containing the paper. "And you waited 24 hours to call us. Why?" "My lawyer," David said, voice breaking in exactly the right places. "Preston Hall. And he said, since she left a note, she wasn't technically missing. She left voluntarily. He said she might be having a breakdown from the pregnancy hormones, and that calling the police would create unnecessary panic. But I couldn't wait anymore. My wife is 7 months pregnant and she's gone." Reeves nodded slowly. "Hormones. Right." The front door flew open. A woman burst in, her face flushed, her eyes blazing. This was Maya Patel, according to the background check Reeves had run that morning. "Where is she?" Maya shouted, pointing at David. "What did you do to her?" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to—" Reeves started. "Don't ma'am me," Maya snapped. She got in David's face, her finger jabbing toward his chest. "She called me 2 days ago. She was terrified. She said you were lying to her. She said she was going to get proof before she left you." The room went still. Reeves looked at David. "Is that true, Mr. Chen? Was your wife afraid of you?" "No," David said too quickly. "That's insane. Natalie has been unstable. The pregnancy, it's been hard on her. She's been accusing me of things that aren't true. Paranoid delusions. I've been trying to be patient, but paranoid." Maya let out a sharp laugh. "She's a forensic accountant. She doesn't get paranoid. She gets evidence. And she told me she found something. Something big." "Ms. Patel, what exactly did she say she found?" Reeves asked, pulling out her notebook. "She wouldn't tell me specifics, but she mentioned offshore accounts, shell companies. She said David wasn't who he pretended to be." Maya turned to Reeves, her voice dropping. "And she said his sister was involved. And Lauren Chen, his CFO. The two of them are always together, always in private meetings." Natalie hated it. David shot to his feet. "That's enough. Lauren is my business partner and my sister. You're grieving, and you're projecting, Maya. I won't let you slander my family." "Slander?" Maya's voice rose. "You took a trip to Grand Cayman last month. Natalie saw the tickets. You told her it was a tech conference. There was no conference, David. I checked." Reeves stepped between them. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to need access to your phones, computers, and financial records." David's face went pale. The performance cracked. Just for a second. But Reeves saw it. The mask slipped, and underneath was something cold and calculating. "You can't. I have proprietary business information on client confidentiality." "Your wife is a high-risk missing person," Reeves said evenly. "That baby's life could be at stake. I'm not asking any more. Hand over the phone." David reluctantly pulled his iPhone from his pocket and placed it in Reeves's outstretched hand. Maya grabbed Reeves's arm. "Detective, listen to me. Natalie is smart. She's smarter than him. If she left, she did it for a reason. She wouldn't just disappear. She'd document. She'd build a case." Reeves nodded. "I'm starting to think you're right." She walked out of the house, phone in hand. News vans were already setting up on the street. This was going to be a circus. But as she looked back at the house, at David watching from the window with an expression that wasn't grief but fury, Reeves's gut told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't a missing person case, but this was a prelude to something much bigger. And Natalie Chen wasn't a victim. She was 2 steps ahead. The news alerts lit up every screen in the Bay Area. Missing. Pregnant Palo Alto woman vanishes. Husband desperate for answers. In a small studio apartment in Oakland, a woman sat on a worn sofa watching the coverage on a tablet. She wore a gray hoodie and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She took a sip of ginger tea and turned the volume down. The apartment was sparse. A bed, a small kitchenette, a desk with 2 laptops. It was a corporate housing unit rented under the name of a consulting firm that existed only on paper. Natalie Chen, very much alive, placed a hand on her belly. The baby kicked. Strong, healthy. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. "Mommy's just working." The door opened. So a woman walked in carrying a leather portfolio, dark hair, charcoal suit, the same woman David had met at the wine bar. "You're trending on Twitter," the woman said, setting the portfolio on the desk. "He's doing exactly what you predicted." "Good," Natalie said. "Is he panicking?" "Panicking doesn't cover it." This was Laura Cheng, not LC, not mistress, not problem solver. She was a former FBI forensic specialist who now ran a private investigation firm that specialized in white-collar crime. "He called me 6 times last night," Laura said, opening one of the laptops. "Thinks I'm his hired contractor, thinks I'm helping him hide assets. He has no idea I've been documenting every conversation." "The kiss was a nice touch," Natalie said with a small, cold smile. "Theater," Laura shrugged. "But it sold the story. He's arrogant. But he hired me 3 months ago. Want to guess what for?" "To investigate me for infidelity," Natalie said flatly. "So he could void the prenup." "Bingo. The irony is choking me. He's paying me $50,000 to build a fake case against you while he's embezzling $90 million from his own investors." "While he's what?" Natalie's voice sharpened. What Natalie and Laura had built together over 3 months wasn't just evidence of an affair. It was a complete financial map of the largest venture capital fraud scheme in California history. And David Chen had handed them every piece. Natalie hadn't started looking for an affair. She'd started looking for money. 4 months ago, she'd noticed irregularities in their personal accounts, large transfers to LLCs she didn't recognize, withdrawals that didn't match David's expense reports. When she asked about them, he'd shut her down immediately. "Those are business accounts, Natalie. You wouldn't understand the structure." But she did understand. She'd spent 12 years tracking money for corporations trying to hide fraud. She knew what shell companies looked like. She knew what money laundering smelled like. She started with their home computer. David was careless about clearing his browser history. She found searches for offshore account setup, Cayman Islands banking privacy laws, and anonymous LLC formation Nevada. Then she found searches for hire private investigator Bay Area and proving spouse infidelity California. He was planning to divorce her, and he needed ammunition. Natalie made the most dangerous decision of her life. She found the investigator David was planning to hire, Laura Cheng of Sentinel Strategies, and she got there first. "He's going to call you," Natalie had said, sitting across from Laura in a downtown San Francisco coffee shop. "He's going to hire you to investigate me, to find evidence I'm cheating so he can void our prenuptial agreement." Laura had raised an eyebrow. "And you want me to?" "Take the job," Natalie said. "Take his money. Feed him fake reports about me. And while you're doing that, I want you to investigate him. I'll pay you triple what he's offering." "That's a massive conflict of interest, Mrs. Chen." "It's justice," Natalie corrected. "He's not just cheating on me. He's a criminal. He's stealing from investors. And I think his sister is helping him. I need proof. Real, prosecutable proof." Laura, who had built a career on catching people who thought they were untouchable, smiled. "This is highly unethical. Is that a no?" "That's a hell yes." For 3 months, Laura played her role perfectly. She let David hire her. She sent him reports about Natalie's suspicious lunches with male colleagues from her old firm. She met him at discreet locations to deliver updates. Meanwhile, she was using David's trust to access everything. She installed tracking software on his devices when he left them unattended during their meetings. She followed him to offshore banking consultations. She recorded every conversation. The meeting at the wine bar wasn't a romantic rendezvous. It was the final handoff. "He thinks I'm securing files for him," Laura said now, back in the Oakland apartment. "He thinks I'm his partner in covering up the fraud. He gave me a hard drive last week." She pulled out a small black external drive from her portfolio. "What's on it?" Natalie asked. "Everything. The complete accounting ledger for 3 offshore accounts registered to shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Every fraudulent investment statement he sent to clients. Every fake performance report. And best of all, Laura's smile was sharp. Every email between him and his co-conspirator." Natalie held her breath. "His sister, Lauren Chen, signed and authorized on every fraudulent transfer." Natalie exhaled slowly. "He's done." "They both are," Laura corrected. "Your note was brilliant. It sent him spiraling. He's focused on the affair angle and the missing pregnant wife. He's not even thinking about the money." Natalie stood and walked to the window. Oakland spread out below her, gray and real and honest. "He took my career, told me I'd be a better mother if I wasn't stressed about work. He isolated me, made me dependent, made me small." She turned, her face hard as stone. "He's not just going to jail. I'm taking everything." "So what's next?" Laura asked. "Now we go federal. Detective Reeves is smart, but she's looking for a body. I'm not a body." Natalie placed both hands on her belly. "I'm a prosecutor's dream witness. Send the full file to the SEC. Anonymous tip. Complete documentation." "And then?" Natalie smiled for the first time in months. "Then we watch it burn." Within 48 hours, the Securities and Exchange Commission opened an emergency investigation into Chen Venture Partners. A freeze order was placed on all accounts connected to David Chen, Lauren Chen, and their network of shell corporations. David found out when his black card was declined at a gas station in Menlo Park. He sat in his Tesla, staring at the screen. Payment declined. He tried his backup card. Declined. He tried his corporate card. Declined. He called his bank. A recorded message informed him that all accounts were under federal review, pending an investigation into securities fraud. David's hands started shaking. The police were everywhere. Detective Reeves had been to his office twice, interviewing his staff. The media was camped outside his house. Maya Patel was on every local news channel calling him a liar and a manipulator. But this was different. This was federal. He drove straight to the office, running 2 red lights. He burst past his assistant, who looked terrified, and stormed into the corner office where his sister worked. Lauren Chen looked up from her computer, her face already pale. "They froze everything," David said, locking the door. "The SEC. Someone gave them the files." Lauren's composure shattered. "That's impossible. Only you and I have access. Did Natalie?" "She couldn't have," David cut her off. "She's been locked out of the business accounts for 2 years. She doesn't even have passwords." "Then who?" Lauren's voice climbed. "Who else knows?" "The investigator," David breathed. "Laura Cheng. She played me. Natalie must have gotten to her first." "Oh my God, David." Lauren started pacing. My name is on everything. Every transfer. Every authorization. I'm going to prison." "Stop," David snapped. "We're not done. The accounts are frozen, but the master server, the one in the Caymans, it's still active. We can still execute the fail-safe protocol. Transfer everything to the Singapore accounts and wipe the servers clean." "We can't access that remotely," Lauren said. "It requires the physical encryption key, the one you said you'd—" "I did," David said, his eyes lighting up with desperate hope. "It's hidden. Somewhere no one would ever look." "Where?" "The house, in the nursery. Inside that air purifier Natalie insisted we buy for the baby's room. I hollowed it out. There's a biometric safe inside. What David didn't know was that Natalie had known about the safe for 6 weeks. She'd watched him install it through the nanny cam she'd hidden in the stuffed elephant on the bookshelf. She'd watched him test the fingerprint scanner. She'd watched him hide the drive that he thought was his insurance policy. And 3 days ago, she'd broken into her own home and swapped it. Detective Reeves was running out of patience. She'd been on this case for 48 hours, and every instinct screamed that David Chen was guilty of something. But she had no body. No crime scene. Just a note and a missing pregnant woman who seemed to have vanished into thin air. She was interviewing Maya Patel for the 4th time when her phone rang. The forensics team. "Detective, you were right to have us check the home network. Someone accessed the router's admin panel from inside the house 2 days before Mrs. Chen disappeared. They installed monitoring software." "What kind of monitoring?" "Packet sniffing. Network surveillance. Whoever did it has been watching every website David Chen visits, every email he sends, every login he makes, and it's all being routed to an encrypted server." Reeves sat up straight. "Can you trace it?" "We just did. And detective, that server just pinged us with an automated alert. David Chen is currently at his home address attempting to access a Cayman Islands banking portal." Reeves was on her feet. "He's destroying evidence. Get me 2 units at that address right now." The trap had been set months ago, and David Chen had just walked into it. David and Lauren raced through the house. News cameras on the lawn swiveled to track them as David's Tesla and Lauren's Porsche tore up the driveway. "Ignore them!" David shouted, pushing through the front door. They ran upstairs to the nursery. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. The gray walls, the white crib, the air purifier in the corner. "There," he said, pointing. "The purifier." "David, the police," Lauren said, looking out the window. "A car just pulled up. Unmarked." "It's the media. Just watch the door." David pulled the air purifier away from the wall. His fingers found the hidden release panel. It clicked open. Inside, past the fake filter assembly, was the small biometric safe. He pressed his thumb against the scanner. It beeped. Green light. The safe opened. Inside, on black foam, sat a small encrypted USB drive. "Got it," he breathed. "Thank God," Lauren gasped. "My office, now!" They ran to David's home office. He slammed the door, sat at his desk, and jammed the drive into his laptop. "Okay," he said, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Accessing the Cayman portal. Initiating transfer protocol to Singapore. Once this starts, the Cayman servers will wipe themselves. No evidence." Lines of code filled the screen. Lauren stood behind him, wringing her hands. "It's working," she whispered. "Almost there," David said, watching the progress bar. $90 million. All of it gone. Untraceable. They'll have nothing. The progress bar hit 95%. Then the screen went red. Access denied. System lockdown. Surveillance active. "What?" David slammed his hands on the desk. "What is this?" He tried to close the window. It wouldn't respond. He tried to eject the drive. The system rejected the command. A new window opened on his screen. A video player. The file name, for David and Lauren. "Don't click it!" Lauren screamed. Too late. David's finger was already on the trackpad. The screen flickered. A face appeared. A woman's face. Clear, calm, healthy. Natalie. She wasn't in a hospital. She wasn't in danger. She was sitting in a clean, well-lit room, her hands folded over her pregnant belly. "Hello, David," she said. Her voice was steady. Clinical. "Hello, Lauren. I imagine you're both very surprised right now." Lauren made a small, strangled sound. "You're probably wondering what's happening," Natalie continued. "So let me explain. The USB drive you just inserted isn't your failsafe. It's mine. I swapped it 3 days ago when I broke into the house to pack my things. The video split. On the left side was Natalie. On the right side was a live feed from the webcam on David's monitor, showing him and Lauren, frozen in horror, staring at the screen. The drive you just plugged in is what's called a honeypot. The moment it made contact with your system, it did 3 things. Natalie held up one finger. First, it activated a keylogger that captured your passwords, your Cayman banking credentials, and the IP addresses of your Singapore accounts. Second finger. Second, it initiated a data dump, not a transfer, from your Cayman servers to the SEC, the FBI, the IRS, and just for fun, the California Attorney General's office. Every fraudulent statement, every fake investment report, every email between you and Lauren authorizing theft from your investors. Third finger. And third, it sent your exact real-time location and a live video feed to Detective Sarah Reeves. The sound of a battering ram hitting the front door echoed through the house. "Police! We have a warrant!" Lauren screamed, a long, high wail of pure despair. David just stared at his wife's face on the screen. "You thought I didn't see," Natalie said softly. "You thought I was too hormonal, too emotional, too pregnant to notice what you were doing. But David, I saw everything. I've been watching you for 4 months. I've been recording you for 3. And that note I left?" She smiled. Small, cold, final. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a declaration of war. And you just lost. The screen went black. The office door burst open. Detective Reeves stood there, gun drawn, 3 uniformed officers behind her. "David Chen, Lauren Chen, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit theft." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, David looked at the blank screen of his laptop. His entire empire, $90 million, or years of carefully constructed lies, reduced to nothing. He'd been so focused on hiding from regulators, from investors, from the world, that he never saw the real threat. The pregnant woman he'd dismissed as paranoid. The wife he'd convinced everyone was unstable. She'd been the smartest person in every room, and he'd never even noticed. The 6 months following the arrests were brutal. Natalie gave birth to a healthy girl, Emma Rose Chen. She didn't retreat into motherhood. She prepared. She brought the same methodical precision she'd used to track David's crimes to destroying them in court. The trial of the United States versus David Chen and Lauren Chen became the biggest white-collar case in California that year. The media who'd painted Natalie as a tragic missing person now scrambled to call her a mastermind. They weren't wrong, so the courtroom was packed. On one side sat David, thinner, broken, wearing an off-the-rack suit that hung on him like a costume. Beside him was Lauren, her designer wardrobe replaced with plain gray clothes, her face hollow. The prosecution calls Natalie Chen to the stand. Natalie walked to the witness box, her steps even, her gaze forward. She didn't look at David. She didn't look at Lauren. She'd seen enough. She sat. She swore the oath. She looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people holding the fate of her betrayers. "Mrs. Chen," the prosecutor said, "please explain to the jury what you did when you first suspected your husband of fraud." David's attorney shot up. "Objection? Relevance." "Overruled," the judge said. "This goes to timeline and motive. Answer the question, Mrs. Chen." Natalie's voice was clear, professional, yet empty of emotion. "I wasn't a wife suspecting an affair. I was a forensic accountant who recognized patterns of financial crime. The affair was misdirection. The real crime was the systematic theft of $90 million from venture capital investors." For 3 hours, she walked the jury through the evidence. She didn't speak about betrayal. She spoke about wire transfers, shell corporations, fabricated performance reports. She used a laser pointer to highlight David's digital signature on fraudulent documents. She showed them, with devastating clarity, how he and Lauren had stolen from people who trusted them. This wasn't a broken marriage, she concluded. This was organized crime disguised as venture capital. David's attorney tried to fight back during cross-examination. Mrs. Chen, you were 7 months pregnant when you disappeared. Your hormones. My pregnancy is irrelevant to the financial crimes committed by the defendants. Natalie cut him off. You hired a private investigator to entrap your husband. I hired an investigator after discovering my husband had already hired her to manufacture evidence against me. I offered her the truth instead of lies. You can't entrap someone into committing crimes they've already been committing for 3 years. You staged your own disappearance. I removed myself from a dangerous situation and provided law enforcement with a completed investigation. The theatrics you're referring to were necessary to make my husband reveal the location of his encryption keys. He walked into a trap he built himself. The attorney had no response. The final blow came when the prosecution played the video. The entire video captured by the honeypot drive. The jury watched David and Lauren dissolve into panic, watched them try to flee to Singapore, watched them incriminate themselves completely. When it ended, the courtroom was silent. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. On count 1, wire fraud, guilty. On count 2, securities fraud, guilty. On count 3, money laundering, guilty. 37 counts total, guilty on all of them. Lauren collapsed and had to be carried out. David didn't move. He just stared at Natalie with an expression of absolute incomprehension. He'd built an empire on making people believe he was smarter than them, and his pregnant wife had dismantled it while he wasn't even looking. Natalie stood, smoothed her blazer, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. David Chen was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Lauren Chen received 12. Chen Venture Partners was dissolved. Every investor was repaid from seized assets. The house in Palo Alto was auctioned. Natalie saw Lauren one final time before she was transferred to federal custody. She'd requested the meeting. Lauren sat behind bulletproof glass, her hands cuffed, her face puffy from crying. "Why are you here?" Lauren whispered. "To understand," Natalie said. "You were his sister." Lauren let out a bitter laugh. "He told me you were bleeding him dry, that you were going to leave and take everything. He said if we moved the money offshore, we'd be safe. He said," her voice broke. "He said we were protecting the family." "He used you," Natalie said quietly. Just like he used me. We were tools to him. Different functions. Same value. None. "He loved me," Lauren whispered. "No," Natalie said, standing. "He loved what you could do for him. And now you'll spend 12 years learning the difference." She walked away, leaving Lauren weeping for a brother who'd already started negotiating against her for a reduced sentence. 3 weeks later, Detective Reeves knocked on the door of Natalie's new apartment in Berkeley. It was small, bright, filled with baby equipment and the chaos of new motherhood. Natalie opened the door, Emma asleep against her shoulder. "Detective," she smiled. "Come in. I have coffee. Or I have formula. Those are my options now." "Coffee's perfect," Reeves said, stepping inside. They sat in the small living room. Reeves accepted the mug and took a sip. I came to officially close the missing persons case," Reeves said. "Paperwork. I appreciate that." Reeves looked around the apartment, so different from the cold Palo Alto mansion. "Can I say something off the record?" "Of course." "I've been a cop for 18 years, Reeves said. "When I saw that note, I had a story in my head. Scared pregnant woman, abusive husband, domestic violence. I was looking for a victim." "I know," Natalie said. "But you were never a victim. You were running an investigation that put half my department to shame. You committed about 15 crimes yourself, breaking and entering, evidence tampering, unauthorized surveillance. You're lucky the U.S. attorney loved you." "I was protecting my daughter," Natalie said, looking down at Emma. "I couldn't go to police without hard evidence. A pregnant woman accusing her successful husband? He would have buried me, painted me as unstable, taken my child. The only way to win was to make him show his hand." Reeves nodded slowly. "That note. I still think about it." She pulled a copy from her jacket. The evidence file version. "You weren't explaining why you left," Reeves said. "You were declaring war." Natalie took the paper, touching the words she'd written. "You thought I didn't see. He thought I meant the affair. I meant I saw the fraud, the theft, the real him. You were wrong. He thought I was irrational. I was telling him he'd miscalculated. I'm not coming back. He thought I was running. I was telling him I was repositioning. Our daughter deserves the truth. He thought it was about honesty. It was about justice." Reeves stood. "Your daughter is lucky. She's got one hell of a mother." "Thank you, Detective." "Don't do it again," Reeves said, but she was smiling. "I'm planning a very boring life." "I doubt that very much." 6 months later, Natalie sat on a bench in a Berkeley park, pushing a stroller back and forth while Emma napped. Maya sat beside her, handing her an iced latte. "So, Chen Strategies is officially launching?" Maya asked. Natalie smiled. "Forensic accounting consultation, specializing in helping women audit their spouse's finances before divorce proceedings." "You're teaching them to do what you did." "I'm teaching them to protect themselves," Natalie corrected. "First client is a woman whose husband has her on a $200 a week allowance while hiding assets in a family trust. He's sloppy, like David, just less sophisticated. Laura Cheng is your partner, all right? Silent partner. She's running her own operation. But she sends referrals, women who need someone who understands how to fight back." Maya shook her head, laughing. "You turned a 4-sentence note into a federal case." "I turned a pattern into evidence," Natalie said, "and I protected my daughter." She looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully in the California sun. She thought about the glass house in Palo Alto, the cold marriage, the man who'd tried to make her small. It had been loud, expensive, empty. This was real. Natalie Chen had vanished, and in doing so, she'd discovered who she actually was. Not David's wife, not a victim, not someone who needed saving. A mother, an accountant, a woman who knew that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who yells. It's the one who's quietly counting. David Chen learned that lesson in a federal courtroom, and he'd spend the next 18 years remembering it. Irina Hayes didn't just disappear. She executed perfect justice. She proved that information isn't just power, it's a weapon. And she showed that the person you underestimate is often the one holding all the cards. So here's what I want to know. If you were in Natalie's position, would you have done the same thing? Would you have built the case in secret, or would you have confronted him directly? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story had you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we've got more stories of justice, revenge, and people who underestimated the wrong person. Thanks for watching.